Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I'm Justin, and I am the hard-hitting news reporter.
I'm Nico, and I'm Tamatoa, because working on this has given me just shiny stuck in my head the entire time we've been doing this prep work.
And I'm Dan Lahirafa.
Oh, and we are here today to discuss Tigers Are Not Afraid, otherwise known as Vuelven. So this movie was directed by Issa Lopez, and it stars Paola Lara as Estrella, Juan Ramon Lopez as Shine, Neri Arredondo as Moro, Tenoch Huerta as Chino, Ansel Casillas as Tucci. Or Tusi. Sorry, I keep messing that up. So this movie actually takes place against the backdrop of the drug war in Mexico. So we open with two children, Estrella and Shine. Estrella's a young girl living with her mother, and one day at school, there's gunfire, like right outside. So everybody gets on the floor. Her teacher then hands her 3 pieces of chalk, indicating that they will grant her 3 wishes. After the shooting, classes are kind of suspended, and Estrella heads home. However, her mother isn't there. So Estrella has no choice but to just sit and wait for her to come back. Kind of a bleak opening, and in general, this movie does get kind of bleak, but what happens, Dan?
So then we kind of see Shine a little bit, and he lives a very different life. Shine is the leader of an extremely young gang of homeless children. One night, he steals a gun and iPhone from Kako, a gang member of a human trafficking ring known as the Huascas. He contemplates shooting Kako, but cannot bring himself to do it. Meanwhile, Estrella's mother still has yet to return, and Estrella is starting to grow hungry. She sees her mother, as a ghost, appear and tell her to bring him to us, but she is terrified and does not quite understand the context. Shine appears to rob her house, and Estrella follows him to his hideout.
So what's at the hideout, Nico?
So at the hideout, we are introduced to Shine's gang, which includes Pop, Tusi, and Maro, a boy who doesn't speak. Shine doesn't like Estrella at first, but the others take to her pretty quickly, so he begrudgingly accepts her. And Kako then arrives, unfortunately, and he's looking to get his phone back, but the gang flees. However, they don't all make it out, because Moro is unable to get away and gets captured by Kako. And Shine tells Estrella that if she can kill Kako, then she can stay in the gang, and she will have proven her worth and loyalty.
So what follows after that, Dan?
So now the gang heads to Kako's house, and Estrella enters with the gun. When she arrives, she wishes that she didn't actually have to kill him, and to her luck, she actually finds Kako already dead. Estrella then accidentally misfires her gun and rescues Moro, to the relief of the group. Because she misfired the gun, all the rest of the group thinks that she's the one that killed him, and she doesn't say otherwise, really. That night, Estrella has another ghostly meeting with her mother, and her mother tells her that the man who killed Kako will be after her. Shine also has a conversation with Estrella, telling her that the reason he is so attached to Kako's phone is because it holds a picture of his mother.
These using their damn cell phones.
Now, things start to escalate when the children are contacted by Tio, another member of the Huascas. He eventually tracks down the children, as they kind of told another gang that Estrella killed Kako, so it was known, and he attempts to take the phone back by gunpoint. Moro shoots him, trying to defend everybody, and grazes him, but Tio returns fire, killing Moro. Shine then attacks Tio, and the group are able to escape with Moro's body. The group look through the phone and find that it actually contains a video of Chino, a mobster who is running for political office, and he's brutally killing someone. So this is the reason why, they're after the phone. They're trying to destroy the evidence. They call Chino, asking him to call off the Huascas if they give him the phone. Chino agrees, but he also reveals that it was him who killed Kako, not Estrella. So, that's a pretty big revelation. Nico, how's the gang take it?
Yeah, it doesn't go over too well, and they all get pretty angry with Estrella when the truth comes out and they realize that she was lying. So they leave her with Moro's body to basically just guard it while they do their business. And Estrella then also leaves and has visions of the victims from Chino and the Huascas. And they all ask Estrella to bring Chino to them. Estrella then has a conversation with Moro's spirit, and he tells her that the gang is burying him. And Estrella meets up with them, and they decide to go back to the meetup with Chino. So at the meetup then, Estrella and Shine exchange the phone with Chino. Chino then kills the gang members that came with him, which causes Shine's gang to run away, leaving just him and Estrella. As they leave, Shine reveals that he gave Chino the wrong phone. Oh, hell. Chino figures this out, though, and shoots Shine, killing him. Estrella flees and is guided by Moro's stuffed tiger into a room containing a whole lot of dead bodies, including her mother's. Chino enters, and Estrella locks him in the room with the corpses, which then begin to attack him.
Well, that's tough, but Dan, I mean, how's this all end?
So Estrella bids farewell to Shine's ghost as the ghost goes into the room to set fire to it, and Chino in there as well. And Estrella remembers Shine's words about why tigers are not afraid. And she runs into an actual tiger, Rawr. The movie closes with Estrella walking into an open field.
All right, so we got a lot to cover here. As you can tell, we have to leave some stuff out. This movie had a lot happen in this movie in a relatively short time frame, actually. So let's talk about how it looks first. Nico, how does this movie look?
It looks really good. The cinematography is on point. The color grading is actually really nice, in particular with the sort of varied sets that they have. You can tell that they really took advantage of the area that they were shooting in. Cards on the table, I don't know where this was shot. I assume somewhere in Mexico City, but it looks very authentic, very lived in, and it sort of gives the setting almost a character itself. It feels like the world they're in has a presence beyond just the sort of buildings and stuff that are there. It felt alive, in other words.
Mm-hmm. I personally thought that one thing about it is there's a lot of scenes where things look kind of decrepit or broken down, and they don't look like movie decrepit or movie broken down. Like it looks like it actually happened over time. And there's a part where there's some like goldfish just in like a naturally occurring, very tiny kind of like, you can't even call it a pond really, but like a tiny little pool of water that appears in a building. And that actually took me back, you know what I mean, to like Trinidad or whatever like that, because you can find those fish just anywhere in the drain. So if a drain, accidentally let out into a building, that's how they would get there. You know what I mean? So that was, I thought, one really cool aspect of it. And I also really dug the cinematography. I liked how everything was framed up. I thought it was done really well. But Dan, anything to add to that, or pretty much on the same page?
Oh, definitely on the same page. The movie is also very dark and bleak looking until like the end, like the last scene, we start to see like a splash of color a little bit. And I mean, there's a little bit throughout the film, but at the end, when we see the real tiger, like tigers are orange. And it, like, I kind of saw that. I was like, oh shit, color, like bright color. And then when Estrella kind of walks out into the field, there's green and there's more color in it than pretty much the rest of the movie. I like that contrast at the end. And I think I might be wrong, but I feel like color is also sort of a symbolism that they use for hope as well, because a lot of times when bad shit's happening, it's very dark, very bleak. And then when good things happen, or at least we have a brief respite or something, there's a little bit more color involved.
Definitely.
When they find that house, that little haven, and there's the fish in the pond, the fish are a spot of color that otherwise wasn't in the film before that. That was a sort of a good part of the movie, they good memories or whatever associated with that part of the movie.
Now, in terms of the audio, I mean, Nico, how'd you like it?
It was good. I had no issues. I can't think of any particular, like, really important leitmotifs or anything or any themes that were present in there that really stood out. But this is one of the ones where there not being a whole lot to say, I think, is just sign of good movie making. And one thing that I will say really quick is that the dialogue was, really, really clean. I didn't hear any parts that were like very obviously overdubbed or anything, but yeah.
I would have to agree with that. My favorite kind of sound thing was they have an audition at one point, and I forget who it is. It's either,
Yeah.
it might be Pop.
Pop, yeah.
Pop gets up on stage and starts beatboxing. And that was like one of my favorite things. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But aside from that, I really, really liked just how the moments where things were very realistic, there wasn't a ton of, accompanying music or anything like that. They
Right.
oftentimes let the moments sit. And I really appreciated that because I thought that due to like the gritty nature of like a lot of the movie, it didn't really call for a lot of stuff. But Dan, you might differ from me. So what's good?
No, I agree 100% with what both of you said. It's a film where the audio and the music was great, but I feel like there's not a whole lot to talk about with it in a good way. It accentuated the film and did its job. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So first up, talking point here is the movie has two names. And sometimes when we see a foreign language film here in the States, if they do choose to translate the title, they'll go with a direct translation or something close to it. You know what I mean?
Train to Busan,
Yeah.
But this movie took a very different turn. So, as we said before, the name of this movie in its original language is Vuelven, which means like they come back or like they return. And it's called Tigers Are Not Afraid in English. So, why the discrepancy? Why would they choose two really, really, really different names, almost getting across different messages? I'm hoping that Dan can impart some wisdom here because he seems like he would know the answer.
Well, I think I'm going to let you down because I don't really know the answer. But if I were to guess, I mean, when I think of it, they return or they come back kind of, to me, is a little bit more horror. I would take that to mean the return of the dead. The dead are coming
Mhm.
back and they're the ones that want, to take Chino back and kill him and, get their revenge. So to me, that is a little bit more of a horror film title, whereas Tigers Are Not Afraid is more of a inspirational sort of set piece kind of title. And personally, I like Tigers Are Not Afraid a little bit better because I think that that kind of gets down to the deeper themes of the film, I think.
So it's funny that you say that because I actually kind of low key agree with you in terms of which title I think better represents the movie. Because once again, like they return or they come back references obviously the victims of the human trafficking ring in Chino. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, but how often are they even in the movie?
Barely at all.
Yes, they play a very critical role at the end, and they are apparent throughout the movie, but the movie's much more fixated on the tiger metaphor and, tigers not being afraid. And literally the movie opens with, them talking about the tigers, and then we get a shot of Shine. So I feel like that is kind of a better title for it. And I feel like it does strike closer to the heart of the movie. Nico, are you in accordance with us, my friend?
I am, and I think it's almost like they had a second chance to do it, and they're like, oh wait, no, this one's better, because the first scene that we really see is of Estrella in school, and they're talking about fairy tales. They're talking about, what makes a fairy tale. You've got a magic lamp, genie, 3 wishes, fairies, and we then have this horrific school shooting, which hit fucking different for me, let me tell you, but that aside, we have this moment where Estrella's teacher gives her the 3 pieces of chalk, and these sort of become almost like the framing device for the movie. By the time she uses those 3 wishes, we will have reached the end of the movie, and that is largely true. And given that we have that structure sort of laid out in the beginning, setting the scene as like, oh yeah, let's talk about fairy tales, it almost makes it that the movie is sort of fairy tale-esque, and I think that fits much better with tigers not being afraid versus just come back.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. It's funny that you mentioned the whole kind of fairy tale aspect because I thought for a second what they were going to do is they were going to make it like a story. At the end of the movie, we were going to snap back to seeing Estrella in class.
I could see that too, yeah.
I'm glad they didn't, though.
That would have been so fucking cheesy.
I actually wouldn't have been 100% mad because they literally open with like, let's talk about stories and fairy tales.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that actually also kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop because I expected this to end much more happy than it did.
Really?
I did. I hoped it would. You know what I mean? Like fairy tales,
Oof.
yeah.
Yeah.
And nah, that was not how it ended at all. So there's definitely that. But now I want to talk about something that we haven't talked about a little bit on the pod, but is always worthwhile to speak about: genre. And I have to open with this. Do you guys consider this to be a horror movie?
I do. I think it is. I think it's not a standard horror movie in that, oh, here's our big bad guy going around murdering people, kind of, whatever. But it's very horrific for sure
Mhm.
in the things that are happening, the backdrop, like we said at the beginning, this takes place with the backdrop of, the drug war and cartels in Mexico. And that's a very real thing that is currently happening. It's not like, a historical thing or anything like that. And I think that the situations that the children are in are very real. And the realness of the movie makes it so much more horrific to me. And also then with the dead coming back, like some of those scenes were scary. Like I thought they were just legit scary. So I do consider it a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Nico?
I also consider it a horror movie, but the parts that are, I think, blatantly horror are few and far between. We've got the scenes with the ghosts that take up, there's a smattering of them in the runtime of the movie. And when they come on, they're great. But I think the movie deals much more in the realm of drama than anything else. So I'm going to posit that I think this is prestige horror.
So I'm going to sound like a massive hater in the room. So I don't think it's prestige horror.
Or like close to it. Like that's the closest thing I can think of in terms of like a subgenre beyond just it's horror.
The reason why I think this is not prestige horror is I think prestige horror has a lot more, and I don't really know a good way to say this. I think it has a lot more like talking about things oftentimes. And there's just like a lot more, I don't even know how to put this, but like,
Character drama?
yeah, like there's a lot of character drama and oftentimes like not really like a lot of quote unquote actiony things happening
Okay.
for like
yeah.
a large period of the movie. And this movie, I also don't think it's horror either. And to me, this movie kind of fits in the realm of, so kind of a little bit opposite to Dan, like the movie being so heavily in the realm of being real and like the realism of the movie made me kind of move a little bit away, like 2 steps away from horror, I think. And from my perspective, this is very much like this is kind of like a fantasy movie, like a very grounded one, similar to Pan's Labyrinth. Like, I think this is a fantasy movie, and there's definitely like horror parts to it, which is why I think, this movie does have traction in the horror scene, because I definitely think there are like horror parts to it. But I think by and large, I wouldn't call this one a horror movie. And to be completely blunt as well, I do kind of think that this movie is one that kind of breaks past genre a little bit. Like sometimes you have movies that they've just taken a lot of different elements and put it together to the point where I find it difficult to really like specifically categorize it in like one thing and be like, yep, this is this. And to me, this is one of those movies where like, I don't know if I could consider something a horror movie when they've got so many scenes of levity. And that's where I kind of sit on it.
Nah, I disagree with that. I don't think there's that many scenes of levity. I mean, there's a handful, but we've seen plenty of horror movies that have humorous parts in them and everything. And while I do think it obviously has some fantasy elements, but I think the vast majority of the movie is way more realistic than based in fantasy.
Significantly, yeah. Like there's the fairy tale framing, but just speaking purely on terms of like what makes fantasy a fantasy, this ain't it, Chief.
I disagree, but we'll move past. We'll let the streets decide. But I want to ask now about the child actors in the movie. So they did a really great job about, like portraying the characters and getting everything across and everything like that. And I want to ask, kind of pose the question, how do we feel about the film's usage of child actors and kind of what was the goal of framing them as such? Like pretty much all the good guys are child actors in this one. And why would that be? My stab at it is that it's largely so that they kind of immediately evoke sympathy and kind of connection with the audience, like you see these kids and you can't help but feel bad for them. And I think that goes a long way with it. And I think it also kind of amplifies the negativity when bad things happen to them. The fact that it's happening to kids makes it that much worse. So that's kind of my 2 cents, but I could be missing something out here. So I'll leave this one to the room. Anything else that I might have missed?
I agree with you. I think it definitely having children be the main cast is going to be the audience is, I agree, much more sympathetic towards them. But I was kind of doing some reading on the director Issa Lopez and everything about this creation of this film. And she was talking about how, let me see if I can find exactly this, but basically she was talking about how she doesn't want to work in autobiographies because the thought of that terrifies her. But she herself lost her mother when she was 8 and she was an orphan. And apparently, after she was done with the film, she was talking to a good friend of hers and was saying that she, Issa Lopez, felt that this film was very removed from her personal experiences. And her friend just replied,
Thank God.
"You're joking, right? Because this movie is your life."
Oh,
And maybe
well.
not, I don't know to what extent exactly, like gang violence and everything. But she also says that when working with the children, she realized the best way to get the kids to give you their emotions, and their pretty dark emotions, is to guide them there. You have to go to that emotion yourself. I would sit down with Juan Ramon Lopez, who plays Shine, who is an orphan himself, and we would try to get in touch with that emotion. He would say, "What makes you sad?" I would very honestly say, "I am sad that my mom and my dad are never going to see this movie that we're making together." And he would understand that sadness, and it would be a very, very deep moment for both of us.
Wow.
So I think that, long story short, I think part of the reason, whether conscious or subconsciously, all the actors are kids, are because I think it plays into her experiences, whether she quite realized that when she was making it or not.
I guess also 2%. I kind of also feel like it plays into also the fairy tale. Like
I agree with that, yeah.
that also like happens to kids, and kids see the world through like a different lens almost, you know what I mean? So I definitely feel that as well. And I'm glad that you mentioned him because I wanted kind of specifically to talk about Shine. I thought all the kids were great, but specifically him. I thought that his performance was really good. I had no idea about anything about his backstory, but like I thought his performance was really good. And it's kind of crazy how, even, and this is, I guess, true to a certain extent, in like any kind of, group of like young kids, especially when you're like on the street a little bit more, or anything else like that. But like, you always have like a guy that's the leader of the clique. You know what I mean? Like you always have that one dude who's like, he's the guy. We do what he says. Like, and that is very true and very accurate, I think, to a lot of friend groups and stuff like that. And how did you think he handled the pressure of being the boss, especially the situation they're in? Because oftentimes he's stealing food so that they can live. So how'd you feel about his role and like how he the character, how he handled his life.
I think that we could see the pressure he was under every time he was on screen. This was a character who had to grow up real quick, to the point that Shine he's not a kid. He is a kid, but he's not. Like, he has to be a caretaker. He's become parentified. He is someone who just has oodles of trauma. And I think the fact that it comes through so clearly and so authentically is really just a, shout out to Issa Lopez and the rioters and everything that they did to help coach those kids. It's just well done. Hats off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I liked his character a lot, and I thought he did a really good job of being the leader of the group. He looked out for his crew, and when Estrella kind of joins their group, he's pretty hesitant about it at first, which I think as a leader you probably should be of somebody joining your group, just not all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, you're cool. And once the rest of the group really liked her, and over time she kind of, I guess, proved herself sort of. He warmed up to her too, and he also took it kind of personally that she was the one who supposedly killed Kako, and he was like, I should have been the one to do that. Like, I'm the leader, like that should have been me. And then also on the flip side, and I think this kind of goes to just children in general, but when they get to the house and they kind of find a little bit of respite in the house, there's a scene where he is crying and he and Estrella sort of have a little bit of a moment. And then one of the other characters is like, hey, come over here. And they run to the different room like, oh, what's happening? What's up? What's up? And they found a bunch of soccer balls. And then like literally immediately they all start like playing and having fun. And I mean, I think one, that kind of points to the resiliency of children, but also to Shine in particular, because he's their leader and he sort of allowed them to have fun. And he was one of the first people to jump in and start playing and having fun as well. And as much as a leader has to be there in the bad times, has to be there in the good times too. So, yeah.
I really, 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 really liked his character a lot. Estrella, I thought she was like necessary. You know what I mean? Like, she is the catalyst for a lot of things happening in the movie and within the group itself. I was kind of torn for a while about kind of how I felt about her. I ended up liking her by the end, but I was torn for a long time in the movie just because part of me wanted to know what the movie would have looked like potentially without her. Like, if it was just that group, or even if she'd been there, but the context wasn't like her mom was missing, like she was just part of the group from the jump, kind of what that would look like then. You know what I mean? Because I was kind of torn there. But in the end, I liked what they did as well. So I really can't complain or anything like that. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the symbolism in this movie. So first off, we've got this chalk that the teacher gives her. The chalk supposedly grants 3 wishes. I mean, Nico, you talked a little bit about it earlier on, but can you kind of go deeper into that? What is the point of this chalk?
So to me, the chalk represents the last sort of bastion of normalcy in her previous life that she used to have. And it seems that that chalk is her sort of like weapon against, and her tool and defense against all of the evil that is around her. To the extent that this plays on fairy tales structurally and just tropes of fairy tales, I think it makes sense in particular that the chalk is the thing that blocks this sort of, I don't know if I could call it a predatory trail of blood, but it's a trail of blood that keeps on following her. I think it makes sense that her putting a line between the two of them was what did it, instead of just like closing a door. She was using something, an artifact of her happiness, an artifact of probably the last time that she was an actual child, arguably, as a safeguard against the terrible world around her.
How do you feel, Dan, about the fact that she believes that every time she makes a wish, something bad happens? And I did also notice that the literal point on Shine's face where she marks it is where he gets shot.
Yep.
But how do you feel about just the fact that she's like, every time I wish, something bad happens?
So in a really fucked up way, I like it because it's a very, what's the word, negative, I guess, way to look at the world. But it's
Hmm.
sort of like every action has a consequence. And
Exactly.
she, anytime she wishes, and near the end, she gets scared of making her final wish because she's like, Justin kind of said, like, every time I make a wish, something bad happens. So Shine has a burn mark on his face. So she marks him right there and wishes that his burn mark goes away. And then he gets, like, seconds later, he gets shot and killed.
Which you see all of,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah. So I like that, like I said, it's essentially every action has a consequence, and for better or worse. And in this case, it's mostly worse, but, nothing goes untouched or nothing goes by itself, I guess.
I agree with you there. And I also thought that one thing that it represents is, so this whole time, this world is like sapping her of her innocence and her childhood,
Mhm.
really. And with the chalk, what they were talking about were fairy tales. And it was all literally like nothing. It was all not lies, but it didn't amount to anything in the real world because every time she did, something bad was always happened every time. But at the end, I liked it because she finally saw a tiger. Like, dead ass, there's a tiger there. And I like that because the whole movie they're talking about tigers. And, I love the fact that she saw one at the end because there's a story that Shine tells about a tiger, who was owned by this dude. And then, he was attacked. And so the tiger got out. And yeah, there's actually a legit tiger there. So I like the fact that after she kind of almost loses belief and then she sees something to restore her belief. So I personally thought that was really cool. It was like the world took so much, but then it like gave that last little bit back. It was like, hey, this is that. And I have here as well, and just as a question to the room, is there any debate or question if the spirits that she's being haunted by are real? I always took it that they were real, especially because they kind of mobbed up on Chino at the end there. But is there any suggestion that they may not be?
I don't know that they are. I also don't
Mm-hmm.
know that the tiger or the ending is real.
Carry on, sir.
Like, I think it is entirely possible that that is sort of just her own escape into a new fantasy world, a new fairy tale that she can be in. Because, like Dan was saying earlier, the biggest splash of color that we have is that ending scene where she's walking out in this beautiful verdant green field and she's just walking towards the horizon. There's no any kind of city, there's no kind of homes or any developments. It's just her going in nature. And we haven't seen anything like that in any part of the rest of the movie, to the point that I'm sure it's possible. Like, I know they have like some fucking nice ass grass down there, but like the amount of contrast to have with the rest of the film, it seemed almost too good to be true.
See, that was what dialed even more into the whole fairy tale aspect of it for me, and B kind of fueled some of my conspiracy theory juices on whether or not the ending was entirely like, was it a dream from her in class or like what was going on there? But you're right. I see you. Dan, any commentary on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the spirits, the ghosts could not be real because, with very, very few exceptions, I don't think anything that they do is something that she couldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for instance, like at the end when they start beating up Chino and lock him in, then Shine goes and burns the place down. Like, she could have done that. I mean, maybe not beat up Chino, but like she could have locked him in there and tossed that in there.
1v1 me, scrub, you won't.
Right. But, what we're seeing is the sort of imagination, the fairy tale side of it, but that's not actually exactly what's happening, like word for word. But I think that they could not be real. But I also think that it's not, I guess the point isn't to, and I'm the one who kind of was asking that question, but I don't think the point is to not think about, oh, is this real or not, But yeah.
I definitely agree.
The part with Moro's little tiger and how Moro told her that they were burying him and where to go find them, and then she did go find them, I was like, there were a couple small things that like made me see it that way, that the spirits and stuff were real, but then I could also see the point that maybe they weren't, and she just, happened to find them or whatever else like that.
Yeah, that moral part, that's the big exception for me that I can't quite figure out how that would be not real.
So it's now time for the what would you do? So I put a lot of thought into this because I did not know what the fuck to talk about. So I guess taking it from a kind of almost like a different perspective, because the situation is like honestly pretty hopeless.
Yeah.
So I think the only question I would really have is, if you were in a situation, like maybe let's say you were in Estrella's shoes, because she's probably the most relatable to, anyone in the situation she originally starts from. And so let's say, you happen to meet up with, Shine and the gang and everything like that. Would there be anything different if you could change one thing about what the group did or anything else like that? If you could change one thing to try and change the outcome of it all, what would you change?
It's a good fucking question.
Yeah. I thought about it, so I'll go first. Probably for me, the number one thing I would have done is I would have told Shine, I would have been like, bro, look, like we can send this picture to another phone and you just need to give this phone back. Like you need to give this phone back.
Honestly.
Because everything that was going down was all because of this phone. And yeah, they were probably going to kill the kids, right? But, and again, I don't know how, I don't know why. I would have dipped. I would have dipped immediately. Like I'd have been like, yo, take the phone back. Because like either way, you're done. You're fucked either way. Like you go to give them the phone, they'll probably kill you. You do whatever, they're probably going to still kill you anyways. And I thought that at the very end, when Shine didn't give up the phone, I thought that was a massive mistake, because that dude was actually willing to let the kids go.
Yeah.
Like Chino was like, he even killed the guys who came with him because he wanted to tie up all the loose ends. He didn't want anyone who knew about, what was going on. He got kind of paranoid at that point. But I'd have given him the real phone, been like, yo, boss, I hope you win the election. And I would have left. Like that would have been the end of it for me. At that point, you can't fight anyone else's fight. Like you got to do your own thing, bro. But I'm curious to hear from you guys.
I think I would have not told that other gang, Brian's gang, that we had killed, that Estrella or anybody in my gang had killed Kako.
Yep.
Yeah, snitches get stitches, bro.
And honestly, that was also a big, big, big thing, because if no one had known, then they would have never found those kids.
Yeah.
If no one had known and they kept it to themselves. Nico, what about you though?
I would have tried to pet the tiger and then subsequently got mauled.
I see Nico has dodged the question once.
Y'all covered the two things.
You would have gone with one of the two?
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. So I now want to bring it to the critic review. How'd y'all think this did? Good or bad on Rotten Tomatoes?
I think good.
I think good, yeah.
Oh, real, extremely good. Sitting at a 97% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and audience score a little more modest at 83. So why don't you guys go ahead, give me your just brief general thoughts about the movie, and then your final score. Who wants to go first?
Not me.
I'll go.
All right. Dan's a tiger. He's not afraid.
That's right. I'm La Jirafa.
There you go.
I like this movie quite a lot, actually. I thought that this was a very powerful movie, even outside of the horror genre. I definitely agree with you from before, Justin, that I think this is a film that sort of bends genres in it. Even though I do consider it horror, it's tough to put it there, solely there anyways. But I thought it was very powerful. I actually really liked the fantasy parts to it. And like there's parts where you see like a tiger or something spray painted on the walls and it kind of like comes to life and moves around and stuff. I thought was really cool. I really enjoyed the interactions between all the kids and some of the banter that they had and all that, going from serious to joking around. Like, well, they're talking about how like Chino like murders people and performs a ritual, and one kid keeps saying, "No, it's virtual." Virtual. No, dude, it's ritual. And I just really like some of those parts. So yeah, I love this movie a lot. I'm gonna give it a 90.
So I personally think I played my cards. I think I held them pretty close to my chest here, but I agree with so much of what you said, Dan. I think this movie's fucking excellent. I did not know what I was in for when I started watching this, and holy shit, man. Just there's a lot in this that really, like, when I sit down and I think about the world, there's a lot in this movie that makes me feel like real fucked up, and that I just watch it and I'm like, fuck, bro. And it's really fucked up, but I actually, it's kind of like a personal thing, but so I had, disclaimers for the audience, peek behind the curtain. So I just got a new TV. I invested some money in a good TV, and this was the first thing I watched on it. And at first I was like, oh, like, this is so awesome because, like, colors and everything else you think about. But like literally like 20 minutes in, I wasn't even thinking about the TV anymore. Like, I was so engrossed in the movie and the fantasy elements. It's definitely reminiscent of Pan's Labyrinth in a couple different ways, but I don't want to just like compare it to that because it's really good and it stands on its own. I damn near almost cried when Moro died, and then Shine did a mural, like a graffiti joint on the wall, and they were telling him goodbye, bro. That shit, I was like, I'm good. But like, nah, bro, that shit fucked me up on like a different fucking level. And I feel like anyone who lost a friend, like if you were really young, that feeling of like, oh shit, man, like we're way too young for this. How could this happen?
Yeah.
And like that shit fucking hit me different. So I actually am going to give this one a 93, as I didn't think it was horror, but I thought it was masterful. And this movie put a lot of other movies to shame because it did all that in like an hour and fucking like 22 minutes.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That was such a good use of time. I can't think of a single wasted moment or scene. Like, everything was important. Everything played into it. Fucking fantastic. 93.
Yeah. I'm going to echo everything that you just said. And just as an aside about how well they use that time, I'm a sleepy bitch. And I go to bed pretty early on weekdays now that I've actually got a pretty good sleep schedule.
How the turntables have.
Yeah.
Table turned.
It's fucking weird. This is not the normal Nico, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between.
It's okay, audience. Check back in the summer when Nico can't sleep again.
Yeah, I'll be up at like 5 a.m. I'll be texting Justin like, bro, you want to play Deep Rock? But anyway, I was very, very, very tired when I was watching this, and I put it on at about like 9 or so, and I was like, I don't really want to watch this right now, but I told the lads I would, so let's just go through it. And I kept having moments where I was like, okay, after this next scene, I'll go to bed and watch the rest tomorrow. After this next scene, I'll go to bed. After this next scene, and then like I just got to the end of the movie, and I was like, oh fuck, that was incredible. So this is one of those movies where time just flew by, and I really, 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 really dig it. I think I'm going to give it a 92.
It's been a while since I've rated something highest.
Yeah.
Been quite a minute.
I'm actually shocked. Like you said, I thought you held your cards pretty close. I wasn't expecting that.
Justin's trying to turn over a new leaf, and I'm trying to avoid coloring people's opinions too much. Don't worry. Next movie Nico recommends, I'm totally going to do it.
Yeah.
But I really didn't want to seem fanboyish or anything else like that. But bro, this movie really, 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 like, really hit me, son. Like, I'm vigorously pointing to my chest right now, but like, it really did, son. And so, yeah, I had no choice. I mean, recommendation, yes, obviously. Correct? Correct. All right, cool. Golden Seal?
Yeah, I say so.
Yeah.
I'd do it,
course.
yeah.
Golden Seal of approval stamped. That's the first Golden Seal since Jaws, I think. So well done to this movie. So, or did Jaws not get Golden Seal?
No, Jaws got Golden Seal, the fuck.
Okay, definitely. All right, cool.
This man saying Jaws didn't get the Golden Seal. Fuck out of here.
I don't know. Some people don't like classics like Chucky. So
You can eat my entire ass.
Pew 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 pew.
Sorry, audience, if this one was a little bit more somber. This movie's fucking bleak. So
It's really fucking sad, y'all. They kill like all the kids.
yeah, when they start shooting up kids, it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
So this movie gets the Golden Seal. If you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to see this. Just beyond horror, this is just an amazing movie.
And then like go look at pictures of cats or something.
Yeah, you need to get that serotonin up after this. But if you have anything you want to say, if you want to give us some like counseling or something, hit us up.
We need it.
We're on Instagram and Twitter at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Don't open that door. If you want to see this movie in all its glory in our Hall of Fame, and if you want to check out any other episodes that we have, you can check out our website. That's dotdhorror.com. But till then, keep yourself safe. Really keep yourself safe. Have a great Halloween. Jesus Christ, this movie almost made me forget that's fucking Halloween season. But yeah, have a good Halloween season. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.